Hello everyone, and welcome to week 8, the final week of our 3D modeling course. So we went through a lot in the last 8 weeks. We first started off doing a lot of the basics of 3D Studio Max. We went a lot through the inorganics, and then we went to building up scenes, and then organic characters. We started unwrapping those characters. So as we start unwrapping, there's a couple things that we need to additionally talk about. So we went through week 1 of unwrapping, which is teaching you the basic of the unwrap interface, getting you unwrapping a character model, and getting you to unwrap simple shapes, which is really important. But what I'd really like to get to next is not only unwrapping shapes, but getting them like almost in a usable manner. So the thing about unwrapping a character or something like that is that we need to do symmetrical, and we're going to learn symmetrical by this. And we're going to do asymmetrical, which we will create another cylinder. However, we're going to grab this, and we're going to, let's say it looks like a tree, so we're going to add some branches or something. Yeah, 2 different sides. And we can even go further on and just make a scene like that. So we have an object that's completely asymmetrical and an object that's symmetrical. So for an object that's symmetrical, picture this as a character's torso. And I'll make it a little bit easier for you. I will make this a simpler model, about 14 sides. I'll convert this to an edit poly. And I'm going to start shaping it a bit. Just shaping it into a torso shape. I'm just doing a little bit of rotation. Like that. I'll bring this out. Puff that out like that. And, I'm just doing something a little basic so that we can actually have like a torso type shape here. There you go. It's a very cartoony torso shape. And then I'll just grab the the polygon on top doesn't need much work. I'll just extrude it like that. And I'll extrude it to form a neck. There. Easy peasy. Or it could be a bottle even. This actually looks like a what's the word I'm looking for? A cologne bottle of some sort. So I'm just going to put this all in smoothing group 1. Don't forget polygon smoothing groups. Hey guys, editable polygon mode, scroll down, polygon smoothing groups. Really important to keep remembering to try and smooth out your model appropriately. So let's say that even if this was a bottle cap, see that, change that smoothing group. And just by altering these smoothing groups just a little bit, you get the shapes of things you want. This is too dense. See, everything looks a lot better now that I've adjusted the smoothing group, and I can even go further. And if I want to, and let's say this bottle was a little weird, different. Let's say the bottom torso is different. See, 2 different shapes, and now you got a bottom torso part of this. Let's say this bottle, and we can just edit that like that, and now we get like 2 different shapes. And look how cool that looks, right? Just a little bit of playing around with smoothing groups, and you get a nice look that you're going for. Okay, so this is our symmetrical shape, our bottle. I'm going to go in perspective mode here. I'm going to play around, go to my wireframe, take a look at that. So it's symmetrical, but it's not completely symmetrical because there's no line down the middle. Now, if you run into a model like this and you want to make it completely symmetrical, the ideal thing to do for me is to select every single polygon on the model and go to slice plane. And I can just rotate this slice plane. Remember that we have this tool here called Angle Snap Tool. It makes you rotate things on snaps. And I can just rotate this by 90 degrees. By 90 degrees here, like this. And you can slice your own slice down the middle. See, I created that entire slice down the middle right there. So to unwrap this, now that it's completely symmetrical, or if you made a cylinder that is completely symmetrical, great. Basically what we want to do is we're just going to delete half. So I'm going to take this model, sorry about that, I'll go to polygon mode, and I'm going to delete half. So now I have half a bottle. And now I'm going to go to Tools, Mirror, and Reference. Remember, if it doesn't mirror automatically in the right spot, it's because the access tool, this little XYZ tool, isn't on the edge of the current model you're working on. See, that's right here, right on the edge, which made mirroring pretty easy. You can always go to the third menu here, the hierarchy menu, go to Effect Pivot Only, and you're able to just adjust the pivot itself. And that way, you're able to, just adjust that. One moment, I need to fix my audio. 1 second. About this, I just need to fix this so when I work. Okay, cool, there you go. And so now that we have this model, we have the other half, which is a mirrored reference half. We can now add the Unwrap UVW modifier to our original half here. And with our Unwrap UVW modifier on it, we can go scroll down to Edit UVs and Open UV Editor. And we can see that our UV is obviously not correct. So begin unwrapping that. You can use the seam method, use the projection method, whatever you prefer from our last tutorials, and unwrap your model. So for me, for this bottle, since it's only half a bottle on this side, I can just use my plane and go to a side view projection planar map, and I just find the X view here, and I get a pretty good solid view of the entire side of the model. The only thing I'm going to grab off of it is the top part of the bottle here. I'm actually going to just use a projection. I'll use best fit and just grab that. And I'll use best fit for the bottom part as well. Projection, best fit. That. And then I'm going to relax these two right here. So this relaxes to the appropriate size. And I'm going to relax the actual bottle itself. And you see I get a pretty accurate measurement of everything. And I'm going to rescale all the elements so that they fit well together. And you can see if you go to the top right of the UV editor, we can change from texture checker to checker pattern. And you can see that pattern now matches all around our model. All the checkerboard is pretty much the exact same size all around my model, which is exactly what I want. So we have one side of our model completely done. We have the caps, everything scaled accordingly. We can just go to arrange elements and get it to pack everything together or pack normalize. Going to go pack normalize, and you have this. So it's all packed, everything's ready to go. It's ready to texture almost. And the other half of this model is completely unwrapped, just like this one. So technically, we can just render this out. If I go to Tools, Render, and I'm going to render this map out here. I'm going to save this to my desktop, and I'll save it as, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5. And then, if I texture both models by pushing M on my keyboard, I add a standard material, double click on Scanline Standard right here, double click on the title for the standard material, or you can double click the diffuse color here, the little bubble right here, or you can click on this little box right here, and you can put that through bitmap, find your image, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5 was mine, which should be, I named way too many things on my computer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Maybe I didn't save it by accident. Sort by date. There it is right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. And you see that if I assign it to this side of the model, click Assign Material to Selection, either by right-clicking on the material, Assign Material to Selection, or up here, Assign Material to Selection. Right-click again, go Show Shaded Material in Viewport. And you can see that's our material. And if I apply it to the other side, which is a reference, you can see it's perfect. The entire bottle turns out to be perfect. Now this will all use the same texture. So if I draw on this texture, obviously it will repeat the same pattern on the other side. So this is what's called a symmetrical texture. So everything is identical on one side to the other. You don't need to re-unwrap anything. You don't need to repack it together. Anything you do to one side of the model will happen to the other, will be used on the other side of the model. The only problem this leaves you is a big seam line down the middle of your model. Because it's completely symmetrical, you'll always make this line down the middle of the model, which isn't a problem for most models. But let's say you want to do a character's chest, and you can draw on one side of the model, but let's say there's a scar coming down across the chest. Now, since this is completely symmetrical, what's going to happen is that scar, if you draw on one side of your mesh here, it's going to repeat. Like let's say you draw a scar and it's right here, it's going to repeat the same scar on this side of the model, right here, right? And that's an issue. We don't want that to happen. So, just unwrap everything. Whoops. Be sure to save your UVs and reload your UVs. So, what we want to do is we want to unwrap these so that they're both together in one big symmetrical shape. Now, I'm just going to re-unwrap this really, really quick. So quick, it's going to be lightning fast. I'm going to standard material so I can see what I'm doing. So open UV editor, grab this. Remember, I laid out a projection map. I grabbed all my polygons, I laid a projection map. I laid it to the X right here. Planar best fit to the top. Planar best fit to the bottom. I relaxed everything. Tools, relax. Start relax. Rescaled all the elements so they all fit together. And I packed everything like that. And you can see everything just went right back to normal right here. Right? So now that we have it all repacked and ready to go, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep this here like this. Okay? I'm going to close this, and I'm going to right-click in my modifier list here, and I'm going to go to Collapse All. This is going to collapse our Unwrap and our Edit Poly together so that as the default state of this 3D model, the Unwrap always exists inside my 3D model, which is exactly the way we want it to be. So you really want that to happen. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the other model, which because I collapsed all in the first model, it's no longer a reference. I'm going to open the UV editor, and I'm going to grab these UVs and just move them off to the side. Now, the reason why I move these UVs off to the side is because once I attach these two together, one UV is going to be separated here, and the other one's going to pop into this box here, right? So that when I collapse all, this UV will be, sorry, that's probably a little confusing. This UV on this side will be offset to this side. Now I'm going to attach both models together. Watch what happens. So both models are attached together. You see, both unwraps are there. This is the right side of my model. If I'm looking this way, it's the right side, or left side if you're looking this way. So your left and your right. So what we want to do next is we actually want to weld down the middle of these polygons. So I'm just going to collapse all for a second. I'm going to go to my top view, and I'm going to weld everything down the middle just to make sure that everything is connected together. And I'm looking at my before and after count. That looks right. I click check mark. Everything should be welded. The easiest way to tell if everything's welded on your model is go to the element tool. If you click on a part of your model and it selects everything, chances are it's welded together, at least most of the way. So let's go to Unwrap UV Editor. And then you see if we grab this, and you can see in your model here, hopefully you see on my screen, I know it's a little difficult, but there's a whole bunch of blue lines which indicate that they can merge together. So what you want to do is, because even though this model is symmetrical, we want to add an asymmetrical texture to it, meaning that we want to put a scar across this entire chest or a bottle label that wraps around our entire model. Now, like I said before, at this rate, the way we have it right now, we'd have a, if these two were overlapping, obviously anything you draw on one side will appear on the other side, right? So the reason why we separated them like this is so that we can just do, rotate it like this, and I rotate this one, and I'm going to flip this horizontally. So what I have is these two models, and you can see if I click these polygons here, these blue lines pop up on this side, which means they're able to merge together to form, to get rid of this seam line here. Because the whole purpose of trying to merge these together is, one, to get rid of the seam line, but also so we can add detail all across here, right? So we're going to focus on the front and the back part of the model, just like the main body of the model, I should say. Grab these. And then these we can also merge together, right? So we're just going to grab these closer together. And let's do the caps first, just so we can see a nice example of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one part of the cap here, and I'm going to click on this part of the cap, and I'm going to click on Stitch. Now you can stitch target, which stitches one side to the other side, and you can see if I go stitch a target, one side is being dragged over to the other side a little bit more, which is not really what we want because they're pretty close together. We want them to stitch pretty evenly. So what we want is stitch to average, which you see the stitched right to the average here. So it went right between the middle. There's also stitch to source, which is stitching to the first model I selected. Then there's also stitch custom. So stitch custom is actually probably the best example because not only does it stitch the models to an average, it also moves one model closer to the other to form the proper shape. Now you can change the stitch custom options by left clicking and holding on it, going to options to arrange how much bias it has, and you can see align clusters and scale clusters to match. So if you just click it, there's no more seam line down the middle here. You can see it's a perfect cap. And the same thing will apply to these two. Right there. Really nice. So we have to do the same thing to this one here, which becomes a little bit more complex because the shape is a little bit more complex. So really what we want to try and do is try and do the stitch average. And you see we get the average stitch right here. Now it's not perfect right away because what you're going to notice is we get a little bit of weird stretching that happens here because it's not scaled appropriately. Now the easiest way to resolve that is to go to Tools, Relax, and start Relax, and it re-relaxes that entire model. And you can see we get a much better shape here. Now like I said, not entirely perfect still. There's still some stuff about the cap that we may want to adjust. So I may still do some scaling here. But you can see we have some errors here, right? As soon as we adjust it. So really what you want to do is try and ideally what you'd want to do here is to separate something like the cap, because this will be a different, different texture, right? So if you think of different parts of your model, and we think of body and cap and top cap and bottom cap, you ideally want to separate all these pieces out differently. So my main body is going to be here. I'm just going to relax it again. You see this texture turns out a lot better. Still a little bit of stretching here at the top, but I think that's workable when we texture. And then we can start relaxing the cap top here. And we get a really nice cap here, really nice cap top. And we have a little bit of this that we still need to edit a little bit. But overall, I think it's actually pretty good. So I think we'll be fine for doing this. And then you want to, now if we want to texture it, we can texture asymmetrical detail because we can texture across the front of this model like this. And if we drew a big line across it, now we can actually draw a full label that goes all across this model. Now we're still going to have to really, fix the label on the ends here to match one end to another, but they're very symmetrical, so that we're able to do that quite easily if we just position it right inside our texture map here. And the easiest way to arrange all elements, obviously go to Arrange Elements right here. We can click Rescale and Rotate, and we can pack Normalize, which will pack everything straight up for us. Now, just because it packed it this way doesn't mean you have to leave it that way. If it fits into the box square, you should be able to rotate it, so that if you figure you're more easily going to be able to draw on this part of the model in this direction, obviously drawing a label in this direction is a lot more difficult in Photoshop or even arranging it. So why not just rotate it like this with your snap angle tool still on, angle snap toggle right here. It works also in the UV editor, and you see how easy that was to rearrange everything. And we even have texture space if we want to add anything else to it like that. So we're able to expand upon it. So it's a little difficult, I know, to kind of practice this a lot, but try and make a whole bunch of simple objects. Practice unwrapping, practice stitching, practice making models that are symmetrical, that require asymmetrical texture detail. So this bottle is a completely symmetrical object, which was easy to unwrap and then unwrap both sides, then attach together, weld, and then fix the UVs and stitch them together. And then we can create asymmetrical details, right? So that's pretty much how you would do a symmetrical model with an asymmetrical texture. So stay tuned for the next video, and we'll focus on getting a model like this done. So this was the tutorial on getting a symmetrical model with asymmetrical detail. So you're able to do like scars, buttons, all that kind of stuff that aren't lined up exactly appropriately. But remember, at the start of this tutorial, you're able to keep it symmetrical. Remember how we did that? We just unwrapped one side of the model, and the other side was a reference, and that was symmetrical. So you can be able to keep it symmetrical if you really want to try and practice that, and asymmetrical It just requires a little bit more adjustment. It requires you to move apart the UV map and then attach it together afterwards. So either way works perfectly fine, and both are used in gaming, so gaming and movies. So feel free to try and practice a little bit of both. This is a lot about practice. So what I'd like you to do is come up with like at least one symmetrical object, probably a bottle or a Coke can would probably work good. So a symmetrical object that you can texture asymmetrically. And I think that should be your minor assignment for this week. So I'd like you to get on that, please. Just a Coke can or a Coke bottle or something like that, and then make it symmetrical, model it, unwrap it, and then texture it asymmetrically. So detaching the models, detaching half a model, moving the texture off, attaching them together, and then stitching all together the detail like in this video. Cool? That's your minor assignment this week. Look forward to the next video, which will be talking about more complicated models, and then we're going to talk more about rendering, getting our portfolio set up. You've all done a great job so far. I'm really proud of all of you. You've all pulled off some amazing work. I'm going to do more video reviews this week. I'm going to give you all a personal video about where I think you should take your work as well. Cool? See you next video.